Okay, picture this. You've got a young boy, maybe 11, 12 years old. He's walking through Basel in Switzerland. Ancient city, very picturesque.
Yeah.
And he passes the main cathedral there, the Basler Minster. Huge, grand building. He's seen it lots of times.
We're a symbol of, well, holiness, divine order.
Exactly. But then one day he looks up at it and something happens. Something. Well, completely unexpected and honestly pretty disturbing.
And this boy was Carl Jung.
That's right, Carl Jung. And he has this involuntary vision. It doesn't just shake him up. It fundamentally shapes his entire life's work.
It really did.
He sees God doing something. Well, something a child would think is deeply, deeply sinful. Unholy, even.
Yeah.
So in this deep dive, we're going to get into that moment, this kind of fascinating, maybe slightly irreverent event in Jung's childhood.
But it's more than just a strange story.
Oh, absolutely. We want to explore how this really unholy image actually unlocked for Jung a different understanding of what sacred means.
And how wholeness, maybe true wholeness, often comes from facing the very things we're taught to push away.
Exactly. And we're using Jung's own words, his own reflections on it all.
It's quite a starting point.
It really is. So this vision, it wasn't just a fleeting thought. He said it stayed with him, burned in him for his whole life.
Right. So he's there in Basel, passing the Minster, this very familiar, very revered building.
And then, boom, his inner world just shifts. He looks up and he sees, well, in his own words,
Yeah.
he saw God sitting high on a throne in heaven. Okay, standard enough so far, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then God dropped a gigantic turd right on top of the church.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is graphic.
Right, God dropping a gigantic turd right on top of the church. It's just so jarring.
Especially for a child from a religious background.
Totally. He was apparently devastated, shaken, confused. He thought he'd committed some awful sin just by having the thought, by witnessing it in his mind.
That internal conflict must have been immense.
And here's the thing, he didn't tell a soul. Not for years.
They're completely secret.
Yeah, but that image, it was seared into him. He knew it wasn't just random static. It meant something.
But imagine carrying that feeling of having this terrible, blasphemous thought inside you.
It must have been such a burden. So the big question is, how did he eventually make sense of it? What did it come to mean for him later on?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Because Jung, looking back as an adult with all his psychological insight, he didn't see it as blasphemy anymore.
Not blasphemy. What then?
He saw it as a direct, really potent encounter with his unconscious.
Ah, the unconscious. Okay.
Yeah. He realized it wasn't something he chose to think. It was like this force bubbling up from deep inside him, totally outside his conscious control.
So not a sin he committed, but something that happened to him psychologically?
Exactly. He often talked about the unconscious having its own autonomy, its own wisdom, even if it seems strange or shocking.
So if it wasn't just a random, horrible thought, what was the meaning? Symbolically.
Right. Symbolically. He
Yeah.
figured it wasn't about, literally wanting to destroy God or the church. It was about destroying false ideas about God.
False ideas. Like what?
The neat, tidy, overly sanitized versions of sacredness he'd been taught as a child. He realized the institution, the building itself, that wasn't necessarily the true home of the divine.
Okay.
And, maybe even more crucially, that God, or the divine force, wasn't always, clean and polite and easy.
Not the gentle shepherd all the time.
Precisely. It could be raw, powerful, even shocking. And this, for Jung, was really his first proper look at what he later termed the shadow.
The shadow. Okay, unpack that a little.
The shadow is basically all the parts of ourselves, and maybe even of reality itself that we tend to repress or deny. The things we're told are bad or unacceptable or just messy.
The stuff we don't want to look at.
Exactly. Anger, doubt, fear, maybe even creativity that seems too out there. The vision was like the unconscious screaming through this shadow material, hey, reality is bigger and messier than your neat little box.
Wow. Okay, that flips the whole thing on its head. From a sinful thought to a message from the deep psyche.
It's a radical reframing, isn't it?
It really is. And it makes you think, this isn't just about Jung's weird childhood vision, is it? It connects to us now.
Absolutely.
Because we all carry around these sort of false images, don't we? Ideas of purity or perfection. Spiritually, sure, but also personally, culturally.
Oh, definitely. We're constantly told, often subtly, don't be angry, don't doubt, don't question the things everyone agrees are sacred. Keep it clean. Keep it nice.
But our minds, our psyches, they just don't work that way, do they? Life isn't always nice and tidy.
Not at all. And Jung's point, I think, is that trying to force it to be tidy can actually be damaging.
So maybe real growth, real awakening sometimes has to start with something messy, something that feels wrong even.
That's often the case. Sometimes the biggest insights arrive through a kind of shock, a breakdown of that comfortable, nice version of how things are supposed to be.
Which leads us to ask ourselves some pretty direct questions, doesn't it? Like, what are the things we've been told are untouchable? Institutions, ideas, beliefs, maybe even parts of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we sort of hiding from the raw, the real, the uncomfortable bits?
Yeah. And what might our own unconscious be trying to signal to us, even if the message feels, well, wrong or weird or deeply inconvenient?
That's the crucial step, isn't it? Paying attention to those signals, however strange they seem.
So it raises this important question then. What did Jung do with this? He had this earth-shattering or maybe church-shattering vision. Did he just reject religion altogether?
No, not at all. He definitely didn't abandon the idea of God or the divine, but he absolutely refused to settle for a version of it that felt shallow or incomplete, artificial.
So he didn't run away from it.
Quite the opposite. He spent his entire life exploring the divine, exploring the psyche, in ways that included everything, not just the light, the easy, the acceptable stuff.
But the shadow, too. The difficult, the messy, the hidden parts. He believed fundamentally that you can't become whole, you can't reach what he called individuation without confronting all of it.
Facing the whole picture.
Yes. So spiritual maturity, in this Jungian sense, isn't about being squeaky clean or perfect or always proper.
What is it then?
It's about being honest, radically honest maybe, about being whole, about having the courage to face everything within yourself and in the world, even the stuff you'd really rather not see.
Even the stuff that seems profane.
Especially that sometimes. Because as Jung's experience shows, sometimes the most seemingly irreverent image, like God defiling a cathedral, that can be the very lightning strike that cracks open a much deeper, more authentic understanding of the sacred, one that's big enough to hold all of reality, not just the comfortable bits.
So what does this all mean for us listening to this? What's the takeaway?
Well, I think it suggests that we shouldn't necessarily fear those challenging thoughts or uncomfortable feelings.
That maybe they're not just random noise or proof that we're bad.
Exactly. They might actually be signals, invitations even, to look deeper, to integrate more of ourselves, to find a more robust, more resilient understanding of life, of spirituality, whatever that means for you.
It's a call to embrace the complexity, perhaps, not just the easy answers.
Precisely. True growth often happens right at the edge of our comfort zone, in those very territories we've been warned away from.
Okay. Powerful stuff. A lot to think about there. Definitely starting from a very memorable image.
Unforgettable, I'd say.
Yeah, unforgettable. So, until next time, keep exploring the unknown. And maybe don't be quite so afraid of what it might show you.
Good advice.
If this deep dive resonated, if it stirred something up for you, feel free to share your thoughts, leave a comment, and maybe take a moment to reflect. What might your own shadow be trying to tell you right now?
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need it, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring content. Thank you for watching.